So we did a video earlier today talking about Impact Wrestling and the alarmingly low ratings and viewership figures that came out for Tuesday's episode on AXS TV. Of course, this was the last Tuesday episode of Impact Wrestling before Impact Wrestling moves their flagship show to Thursday nights on AXS TV, and the numbers were really not good. Really not good. If you haven't seen the video, be sure to check it out. It was a really interesting news story at the time, and as I pointed out during the video, unless there was some kind of error, either by Nielsen, Showbuzz Daily, or whatever wrestling outlets were reporting it, because there were several reputable wrestling outlets that were reporting this. Unless there was some kind of error, this would have been the lowest ever viewership that Impact Wrestling had ever done since they moved to AXS TV in 2019. So I mentioned it at the time. It was incredibly alarming. We did a big discussion talking about it, what it meant, what the Impact Wrestling officials would think, etc., etc. Wow. PW Insider is reporting that Impact Wrestling's viewership and ratings were actually incorrect, that were reported yesterday. Now, it was reported that Impact Wrestling's audience for their final Tuesday episode on AXS TV was way down and would have been their lowest number of 2021, unless, as I mentioned, there was some kind of error. Well, PW Insider has reported this morning that there was indeed an error in reporting the viewership figures and the ratings as well. The episode was actually up from last week's episode of Impact Wrestling on AXS TV, bringing in 148,512 overnight viewers. That would be up, of course, from the 116,000 that they brought in the week before. The key 18 to 49 demographic was in the 0.04 area, and that is what really Impact Wrestling has been doing the last few weeks. Now, earlier but today when we spoke about it, and the initial report said that the rating in that demographic was actually 0.01. PW Insider says that it was in fact 0.04. As I mentioned earlier today, the episode was headlined by James Storm versus Eric Young in what was billed as Storm's 1000th match for Impact Wrestling, and it also featured a tribute to the late Bob Ryder at the end of that as well. So it's interesting because, as I mentioned earlier today, when we spoke about this and what it meant, I did say that there was my initial reaction when I saw it yesterday was that there had to be some kind of error, or it was so low. It was so low that it was so surprising. I think it was 38,000 was the number that they were saying. And as I mentioned earlier on, there are YouTube videos and there are YouTube channels, pro wrestling YouTube channels. I'm not talking about, the real mainstream people, but I'm talking about wrestling YouTube channels that get more than 38,000 per their video. So the fact that Impact would have drawn 38,000 live viewers on AXS TV would have been just incredible, really, just incredible. Not the wrestler, it would have been incredible. And I felt that was very alarming, and especially considering, I mean, if this was the end of the year, if this was December, if this was a best of episode, etc., even then you would be scratching your head going, wow, that's a really low number. But especially now, considering we're on the road to Rebellion, of course, it's the title versus title, Impact World Championship versus AEW World Championship match between Kenny Omega and Rich Swann. We had Kenny Omega on the show once again this week. All of that would have just been incredibly alarming. But now that the actual figures have come out, it doesn't look as bad. Now, obviously, it was up from last week, which is a positive. Last week's of 118,000, 116,000. That was alarming. That was really alarming, and I did a video talking about that last week. Considering Kenny Omega made his Impact Zone debut on Impact Wrestling on AXS TV, which he hadn't done unless it was the pay-per-view match at Hard to Kill. That and it was promoted. It didn't do well. It didn't do well, and there was lots of discussion about it. Now, what I do find interesting is that the rationale for Impact doing so badly last night, we spoke about this in the video earlier, was that the NCAA tournament was on at the same time, and that did very, very well on cable, and that would have been perceived as the reason as to why Impact didn't do very well. And to be honest, I found that quite surprising at the time, because you have to remember, Impact Wrestling went up against essentially the inauguration, not the same day, it was actually the day prior, wasn't it? But nevertheless, it went up against what has been some very crazy events throughout the last 12 months, and it still didn't do as badly as it had been reported to have done last night. Of course, it was inaccurate, so I felt that was very surprising as well. Nevertheless, it's a better number. I still don't think it's where probably Impact Wrestling wants to be. I still think they want to probably be close to that 200 region, which they got for the Kenny Omega debut episode. I think the fact that they've avoided this negative PR story, I think is a positive. The issue is that some people won't see the correct figures now. They will have only have seen what happened yesterday. And why that got out there, I don't know. I really don't know. Now, as I mentioned, I don't mean to pass the buck from myself. You know, maybe we should have looked into it further. But frankly, everywhere was reporting this. Everywhere was reporting this. And I'm not just saying this was a couple of websites or one website. Every single website, whether it was Wrestling Inc., Fightful, PW Insider, everywhere. Every reputable source was reporting this to be factually accurate. Even at the time when that low figure came out initially, everyone said this can't be right. And then it was, no, it is right. So I don't know what actually happened here. I think that's an interesting story. I think that's a very interesting story. I think we'll have to wait and see as to why that mistake was made or why that was initially reported. I don't know. Where the 38,000 has come from, I would suggest, and I might be wrong here, but I would suggest maybe it's 38,000 in the key demographic. That might be a case, or in one demographic. But I think they'll be content. They'll be content with 148,512 viewers. The fact that we've got a completely accurate number there, or really, you know, usually you just get, they would round that up. So they would say 149,000. The fact that we've got 148,512 says to me that either someone in Impact Wrestling has reached out to a PW Insider, or PW Insider have done the work and reached out to, I don't know, the people at Showbuzz Daily, Nielsen, whoever, and they found out the accurate number. Nevertheless, it's not a bad number. It's not a bad, I mean, anything would have been better. Anything would have been better than that previous number. I think it does bring up what is again the discussion about moving Impact Wrestling to Thursday nights. I still think it's the right thing to do. I don't think you can look at this and say, well, actually, they had strong competition from the NCAA tournament and they did all right, or what they've been doing. Maybe they should stay. Maybe they should stay on Tuesday nights. The answer there is no. That is still the right move to move to Thursday nights, because you have to realize that obviously there might be some crossover in people that would have watched Impact Wrestling, that watched the NCAA tournament. But once you have a pro wrestling program, you're really dividing the audience. You're in the same niche there. So I don't think this is an argument to say, well, maybe they should have stuck to Tuesdays. No, it's the right move to move to Thursdays. They can't afford to have the audience cut in half, which is essentially what happened when NXT ran on Tuesday nights for 2 weeks in a row last year. So that doesn't change anything. And my points earlier, and this was really my main criticism earlier about why that was so low and all that kind of stuff. My main criticism earlier was that I feel that AEW need to be doing more for Impact in terms of promotion. Yes, obviously, Impact are benefiting greatly by having Kenny Omega on their show, one of the best wrestlers in the world, the AEW World Champion, and there's, without a shadow of a doubt, the main event of title versus title, Rich Swann versus Kenny Omega, AEW World Champion versus Impact World Champion, winner take all. That's a massive main event, and of course, Impact Wrestling benefits from that. Of course they do, but I still think, and my criticism is still the same here, Impact should be asking for more, in my opinion, from AEW. They should be asking, look, you have Tony Khan every single week on Impact Wrestling do his paid advertisements, which essentially, at this point, there's no real storyline development anymore. Previously, there was. Previously, they explained, having Kenny Omega on the show and all that kind of stuff. I'm allowing it. I know Tony Khan did that this week, said I control the bookings for Kenny Omega, all that kind of stuff. I get it, but at this point, they are just ads for AEW Dynamite, which isn't needed. You don't need to advertise AEW Dynamite on Impact Wrestling. It was 30, however many thousand fans or viewers earlier. Now, 148,000. You're still advertising to 148,000 viewers. That's not going to make a difference for AEW. It's not. It isn't. And I would probably argue that 90% or maybe at least 80% of that audience that watch Impact Wrestling on a Tuesday, they probably watch Dynamite the following night. I would prefer at this point to maybe scrap the Tony Khan stuff. I know I've been a big fan and a big advocate. Unless Tony Khan's going to appear in the Impact Zone once again, maybe scrap that. Maybe get another AEW talent that isn't being featured as much on Dynamite at the moment. Get them in, use them in that segment. Or flip it around at this point. Have Don Callis or have Scott D'Amore or have someone from Impact appear in the form of a paid ad on Dynamite and said, look, Tony Khan, you've been doing this for months at this point. It's time for Impact Wrestling to advertise on your channel, on your program. And it'll be far, far more beneficial for Impact Wrestling that way. Far more. Because every single time we've had serious, concrete promotion on Dynamite, we have seen a significant spike on Impact Wrestling on AXS TV. So I think if Impact wants to get the best out of this relationship now, they need to advertise more, or they need to ask AEW rather to advertise more on their program. That's what they really need to do now. That's what they need to do. And it's the same in terms of the promotion on social media, everything. I think Impact... Look, again, I know it's difficult to ask for more because they've already got a lot when it comes to having Kenny Omega appear on their show. But ultimately, I think what they really need right now, they really need that extra promotion, that extra plug, especially as we're heading into Rebellion. We can't head into Rebellion and have them not even reference it on AEW television. That would seem madness, but it could happen. In reality, what we need Rich Swann showing up on Dynamite. You need Dynamite to have Rich Swann show up, attack Kenny Omega and say, by the way, the pay-per-view is this Sunday and it's Rich Swann versus Kenny Omega. Because realistically, Rich Swann could be the next AEW World Champion. If that is the case, I mean, no, it's not going to happen, but realistically, if it did happen, shouldn't AEW be acknowledging that? Shouldn't they be acknowledging their World Championship is on the line? Shouldn't they be acknowledging that maybe Rich Swann could be their World Champion soon? They're not really doing that at the moment. And you would think they would probably have to do that. If you want to follow the logic of storylines here, that makes the most sense. So I think they need to do a bit more acknowledging of Impact on AEW Dynamite, and then we can see some bigger numbers, especially as they're heading towards that Thursday move. Nevertheless, it's not as bad as once previously thought. I don't know what I'm going to do at this point about that original video. Part of me says to keep it up, because the story was that it was the low number, and I guess the narrative is now that it has changed. I don't know. I don't want to be reporting inaccurate information, but I still think some of the criticisms there are valid. So I don't know. You can let me know what you think I should do in the comment section below. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the actual Impact Wrestling viewership number being 148,512 as opposed to the crazy 30,000 that was reported earlier? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.